Good evening, guys, and welcome to the Dodgy ID List. Tonight, I have a very special topic. It is equality or fairness within society. And to help me discuss this topic, I have Eleutheria and Moo Raider. Moo Raider is the ZACP's unofficial mascot, and Eleutheria has her own YouTube channel concerning all things liberty. I'll link all of their social media profiles that I have, as well as Eleutheria's YouTube channel. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.
Beth, do you want to introduce yourself first?
I can. I'm Beth. I am also known as Eleutheria, and Eleutheria is the Greek word for freedom, and I constantly fight for our liberties to be given back to us.
Well, that's awesome. She also has a YouTube channel, which I will link at the bottom of the description. Moo, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Moo. I'm Moo. I don't know what else to say other than that. I mean, I'm generally an asshole, so.
Oh, well, that's fine. As long as you're the mascot of the ZACP, I think we're all happy about that.
I don't know so much about the mascot. I just think loud and obnoxious covers it.
Oh, well, that also works. Okay, so tonight's topic is equality versus fairness, especially in society. I think all three of us have had our fair share of trying to distinguish, what is fair and what is not in the current society that we live in. And more often than not, we've seen that society tends to treat certain people, certain individuals, more unfairly than others. And I'm going to give this to Beth as well to start with, if she's fine with that. And let's hear her thoughts on this.
It's really difficult to differentiate between equality and fairness for me. I think it's very, if you think about it, when you're born, you are basically a blank slate. And everybody is born basically as a blank slate, except for obvious biological differences. So I therefore believe at the beginning of life we are all equal. However, some of us do have different access to privileges, for lack of a better word, which might set us up better in life as opposed to other people. For example, if you're born into a family that is quite well off financially, that might give you better education, which will lead to better opportunities, which will lead to better paying careers. So, there then comes in the argument of, is that fair? And like I say to my kids sometimes, because I have 3 of them, sometimes life just isn't fair. Like especially right now, they're battling with the concept of lockdown and how it's not fair that they're not allowed to see their friends. Technically not allowed to see their friends.
Yeah.
But sometimes life does throw you some curveballs and you've just got to suck it up and deal with it.
Yes.
As best you can.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That's it.
All right. So what you described there, when we are born as equals, you're referring to something that I've read on ontological equality. That's the type of equality that can be seen in many different places, like the United States, for example, which they document that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. If I'm summarizing correctly your thought there.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I was going. Not that I've really read anything on the topic. That's just maybe something I might have picked up from skimming the internet or something. Haven't really read a book on it.
No, that's fine. I think this was also just a sort of a flyby idea that Moo and I had about a day or so ago, and I don't think. Well, also didn't have much time to do research on it. My problem with equality, as we understand it as a society, is that, I don't think it really exists. Because, like you've also pointed out, that even when we are born, even though we are equal in some cases, if I'm born into a poor family and you are born into a wealthy family, you already have advantages that I normally do not have or would not have in my condition. So even there, I'm very skeptical about the idea of equality. Fairness to me is in how we treat and handle certain conditions within society. So, for example, if a rich man commits murder and a poor man commits murder, the rich man should be punished the same as the poor man. There should be no differentiation in that at all. And for me, that would be a form of fairness, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moo, what are your thoughts?
Well, all men being created equal and having the equal rights. Equal rights, yes. Every human being deserves to have equal rights. It doesn't matter where you're from, just you need to be equal in your rights. But as individuals, you'll actually never really be equal to one another. Some people are more creative than others. Some are gifted with the ability to do mathematics. Some are neuroscientists. So ineffably, you really can't be equal. Not unless every single person is exactly the same, has the exact same qualifications, comes from the exact same place, studies the exact same things. There will never actually be equal. You can be equal in rights, but you'll never actually be, equal.
Yeah.
And life really just isn't fair.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about life not being fair. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. Life is very unfair. And it's unfair in probably some of the worst ways recently.
The other thing that I also feel is I just had a discussion with Renati, for example, with how mainstream media basically influences what society deems as good. And I pointed out that I think that one of the key subverters in society, and I think everyone actually that follow me also saw that, is mainstream media, because they have the potential to influence our ideas and our thoughts. One of these things that they started to influence is our ideas of equality as well. Equality before the law, or equality within rights. So, for example, whether rich or poor, male or female, straight or gay, doesn't matter what really in society, you all have the same rights, the same protections, and the same sort of, how can I say, equalities in that sense. But recently we're seeing a huge push for equality of outcomes, what I would like to call equity. What are your thoughts on that, Beth?
It's true that there is no equality, and it would make a very boring world if everybody studied the same things and did the same jobs. We'd end up with a lot of problems, because we'd either have too many doctors or not enough doctors and too many accountants, or, so it goes on. Trying to demand that everybody is equal or has equality is really, it's not going to get us anywhere. And also, at the end of the day, we then end up with such a boring society that nobody will want to do anything.
A hive
Like,
mind.
yes, like if you were just given a house and a husband or wife, partner, whatever, when you reach the age of 21 and everybody drove the same little hybrid cars or whatever, and everything was beige, it would really just, like, what would be the point? So I don't
It
actually
would
understand.
suck.
It would absolutely suck. I mean, what would be the point in having Rugby World Cups? Because, at the end of the day, what you're demanding is that there are no winners and there are no losers. So there would be absolutely no point in having any sporting events, nothing.
Yeah.
And
Exactly. It would be a bland, vanilla, absolutely boring, totally absurd world where no one actually has any personality whatsoever.
yeah,
One person would just be the carbon copy of another person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
you may
And
as well just have
that's
a
not a world I'm
stencil.
too keen to live in.
Because even in that suggestion, where even if we all did study the same thing and we all did attend the same school and so on and so forth, there will still be an inequality in talents, as I think both Moo and Beth pointed out. See, one person may be physically more capable than another person. I know a lot of people that are more physically attractive than I am, more physically athletic than I am. I also know people that are mentally more capable than I am in various things, you know. So there are innate talents, and when we talk about this absolute equality that they want, like for example the equality of outcome, these are the sort of talents that you would have to repress.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
I
But
mean, we'd have no doctors specializing in a certain field.
very true,
Think,
yes.
think what that would do
Yeah.
to
As it
humanity.
is now, we will already have too little doctors specializing in plenty of fields.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them just go after the money recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the sad thing is a lot of the professions lately have lost their passion, and that's another thing when individuality kicks in, where you can't really have a high mind. You you kind of have to be passionate about what you do in order to do it well.
Mm.
And I'm glad actually you touched on that, because you asked me earlier, Moo, what my thoughts on this was, and I said, well, one of the things that I also feel, about fairness is the following. So we all know that we have affirmative action and broad-based Black economic empowerment and employment equity. But when you take that, for example, and you apply it to a college or a university, then normally the pupil or the person that applies for that specific position in that university would be the one that really wants to make a difference in their life. Let's say, for example, doctors. So you apply for the courses in the doctorships and all of that, but because of certain racial laws, even though you might be the most qualified pupil to enter into university, you are now overlooked because you do not meet the demographic or the racial quota for that semester. And that to me is also very unfair. So unfairness to me um, has gives more social harm than actual fairness. So if we treat people equally in terms of merits and abilities and interests, like for example, treat them fairly as individuals, I think we would have solved much more social problems than we have already with our ideals of equality and racial quota systems.
Absolutely. Merit merit is undeniable. It's the fairest system because those who work the hardest earn their wage. It's. I mean, speaking as like a semi-professional slacker myself, I wish I had actually worked harder at high school. I wish I had done more to improve my life. You know, like I'm definitely intelligent enough. I'm just very lazy. So I think that's another thing that is lacking in today's society is motivation.
No, definitely. Especially if you look at, for example, why should one person do the same job as another person, but the
Yeah.
income disparity is just not, I don't know, equatable. That's probably something that they talk about, income inequality. That's something that I would like to address, but in the manner of also rewarding the best within their fields, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I mean, it's motivational.
Yes. So if you're going to be an engineer and you are brilliant at it'll make more sense that you get to charge more for your services than, let's say, me, that might be a mediocre engineer designing bridges.
Oh, absolutely. But what you're faced with is we are currently facing a world where every architect and every engineer will actually have to charge exactly the same amount, even though one might have more experience than the other. One might be more talented than the other.
Yeah.
It's coming towards that. You're going to face universal incomes of some sort.
Yeah.
And where does that actually leave you? The people who save are still going to be wealthier than the people who spend.
Yes, no, definitely. Also, something that I think that I'm going to call them the communists/socialists, that they also seem to forget is that there's inequality in every system, even in a Marxist system.
Very, very true. That's actually, to me, that's actually the most unfair system, because you completely separate the haves from the have-nots.
Yes.
You don't have the gray areas in between.
Yeah. Beth, what are your thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, definitely a Marxist system is a lot more, the inequality is more pronounced in that sort of system, because you have like sort of your, the ruling party that is basically unaffected by most of the Marxist rule. And then you basically have like peasants at the bottom, and that's it. There's nothing in between.
Yes.
So it probably is the most unequal system, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people that think like the three of us do agree with that.
Yes. I've started to equate socialist systems with slavery, because that's basically what it is. You've got the masters on the top, and they dictate to the peasants on the bottom what to do and what not to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So
basically,
and that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah. With all the regulations and stuff on this lockdown.
I'm telling you, these masks are driving me insane.
And then you've got, like, on that point, you've got Pierre de Vos linking an article from a very dubious website that has been proven to be cherry picking certain statistics in order to compile meta-analyses. Let me see if I can find that article. But it was something that in the lines of people that do not adhere to regulations have lower cognitive ability or something like that. And I just thought to myself, what utter drivel. What utter nonsense.
Well, what freaks me out is that you have this thing over your nose and your mouth that's kind of inhibiting the intake of oxygen. It is literally, I mean, I can feel when I get home I have headaches.
Yes.
I have never in my life had this much problems with my sinuses, and I've never ever had this bad of a headache, ever. I mean, I'll get home and I'll have to eat at least 3 or 4 Comprols just to get rid of it.
And that's also not healthy.
Exactly. I mean, there's no way that wearing this thing over your face for 8 hours a day can be healthy.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got the post. It's from SciPost. The website is SciPost. The article is lower working memory capacity linked to non-compliance with social distancing guidelines during the early stage of the coronavirus outbreak. This is what Peter Force linked. And Peter Force is, if you can remember correctly, he was also the author of that article on his blog where he suggested 100% inheritance tax. Now, that is also something very interesting I want to touch on. Beth, did you read that article?
The inheritance tax one.
Yes.
Yes, I did a whole video on it.
Would you care to elaborate a bit on that?
I just, that man is a socialist and he needs to shut up and sit down. Because until he has kids of his own, he really does not get a say in this at all. Because you know what? If you are going to be compelled to donate your life's work at your death to the state for them to distribute as they see fit, nobody is going to want to work towards anything in their life.
Precisely.
Nothing.
No, I agree
They,
100%.
you know, you're just going to end up with a bunch of dumbed down citizens that don't want to provide a better life or anything for their family because they know that they can't, because as soon as they die, it goes to someone else and not their family.
Precisely. And there will always be some ways and forms around that. Moo, what are your thoughts?
Okay, first of all, I don't have any spawn. So I don't actually get a say here, but I have an opinion.
That's fine.
You still get a say.
Yeah, I'll only have one when I actually have spawn. I think that's kind of how it works. But I honestly think that if you're going to be working hard and you're going to be building your empire, you're going to want to leave it to someone. And you probably want to leave it to your kids.
Yes.
So that's kind of building a legacy. Plenty of families have done it throughout the ages.
Yeah.
It gives them a better chance, at building it further and providing something magnificent for their kids.
Yeah.
That's why you have such wealthy families, because they've been doing it for generations.
Yes, and successfully
I don't see
as well.
how that's unfair.
Yeah, no, it's definitely
exactly.
not.
I don't. If you've worked hard for it and you keep working hard for it, I mean, you're allowed to goof off when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But when you're an adult and you take responsibility for that company you inherit and you build it and you make it an international conglomerate, then of course your kids are going to be wealthy, spoiled brats, but you've earned the right to give them that.
Yes, and obviously what they do then afterwards and with their talents and opportunities that you have given them is squarely upon their shoulders.
You should be able to leave a legacy for generations to come. I mean, if Henry Ford built his company. He built it from nothing. He gave his kids everything in the world, and his kids up until today are involved somehow. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's one of those success stories that you want to hear and that you want to emulate, This also touches on something that I've noticed with the people that are drumming on the equality drum. It's not so much that they want equality within society, it's that they are envious of the people with the abilities, to garner riches or wealth for the generations to come. I found that out in a conversation that Unati and I had with another individual on Twitter, for example, where when you dissect it, really, it's not, like I said, that they want equality. It's that they despise the people that have the talents. Have any of you noticed that as well, or is it just my imagination?
I have noticed it.
I kind of,
I just want to circle back to what Moo said about having spawn and not like really having a say in where her legacy goes. I just want to say that even if you never do have spawn, okay, or as I like to call it, children. Would you rather that your life's work gets donated to the EFF or to the ZACP? Because you still get a say.
Yes.
As things stand at the moment, you still get a say.
Oh God, that's a tough choice. I mean, they've just opened a fucking Gucci store.
Ooh.
No, I'm kidding.
Wow,
I'm
Moo,
absolutely
wow.
kidding.
No, that was great. That was a well placed joke.
I would probably donate half to the ZACP, and I would probably request that someone burn the other half just so that it doesn't get taken in taxes.
Yeah.
I think inheritance tax, if I'm not wrong, currently stands at 20%. If not,
Yes.
yeah, I remember something like that. I don't know if they've hiked it recently, but I mean, the way that the arbiters handled. Is it the arbiters that handle the boodle?
The what?
I have no idea.
So it's these lawyers that handle the deceased's property and funds and so on, and then distribute it according to the will after all the taxes were deducted, and yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of something that I've read in the documentation with my granddad's passing away. So yeah, and he didn't have a lot, but the little that he did have, he wanted his grandchildren to inherit. And imagine, in his shoes, where you don't have much, and the little that you did work for couldn't be given to your grandchildren or to your spouse that you're leaving behind. That must be very devastating. All of a sudden now your spouse is left with nothing after years of work. And my grandmother also, she's been a housewife for the majority of her lifetime. So she doesn't really have a nest egg that she could put away in terms of what my mother would do or my spouse would do or what Moo did or like what you do. So her opportunities were much different than ours to do that. So she definitely relies on inheritance in that sense.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's also important to note that even though at the moment inheritance tax is only, and that is in inverted commas, only 20%, there are many people that inherit farms, for example, and then end up having to sell that farm just to be able to get some money out after paying the inheritance tax, because there isn't enough fluidity in their own lives or within the estate to actually pay the inheritance tax. So they actually end up not inheriting the land that their ancestors, or however you want to say it, their elders wanted to bequeath to them, because they have to sell it in order to pay the tax.
Yes, and it's exactly
That's
this.
horrible.
Yeah, so there are obvious ways around that. For example, I've taken out a life policy on myself so that my godchild, for example, when I keel over or kick the bucket, that those funds are already being taxed right now. So when it's paid out, it's basically tax free. And if he inherits my house, for example, and he needs to pay that 20% inheritance fee, he can do that. And these are the things that I thought of, but not a lot of people have thought of this, and not a lot of people really trust life insurances because of the word insurance. And I also have a disdain for insurances, but those are other thoughts for another day. So
I don't have a funeral policy whatsoever. Yeah, I'm being very serious. I do not have a funeral plan because I don't plan on dying.
Oh, you plan to live forever?
Yes, on Mars. On Mars.
Luckily, there's enough land there to bury you, so.
I have volunteered as tribute, and that offer still stands. I hope you tweet me, Elon Musk.
There we go. Moo Raider stepping into space. No.
Yeah.
Anytime, absolutely anytime.
So this is why you're talking about spawn. It's not because you have a disdain for children. It's because you're expecting to become an alien. Now I understand.
Yes.
I want to be one of the first Martians. I really do.
That would be
Okay.
awesome. I can say, yes, I know one of the Martians.
Yeah. Or you know what my dad did? I don't know. I can't actually say that he knew that he was going to go before my mom, but he had two houses that he'd bought, but he put them both in my mother's name.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when my dad died, there wasn't much in his estate for them to actually have to wind up.
That's actually a very good idea as well.
Yes.
It's a risky gamble.
Yeah.
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 Then
I think his reasoning was tax.
yes.
I think that's what it was, because he was obviously, my mom was pretty much a housewife her whole life. So, he was obviously taxed more than she was. So that's why he did it.
Oh, it's a smart move.
That's a brilliant move.
Yeah.
That was genius. Well, as things stand now, with the way the property laws are looking, I don't think that's going to be an option in the future.
Oh.
Yeah, the whole expropriation without compensation is also another thorn in the side, especially to people that really work hard towards owning a property.
Well, I mean, for example, you work your arse off to buy this little patch of dirt that you want to build your house on, and you've saved up for forever and a day, and it gets taken away from you. Why would you work for anything like that?
No, exactly. The only thing that expropriation without compensation is going to achieve is more lazy people. That's all
More
it's going to
poverty,
achieve.
more
Yes.
pain, more arguments, more hatred.
Yes.
Most definitely. I spoke this morning to another person as well in regards to Zinzi Mandela and her passing. I pointed out, for example, after Willem Peter, which I also need to make another video on. After he asked the question, does anybody remember her? I said, well, no doubt she'll be sanctified as a saint and stuff, meaning that all the bad things that she did, all the bad things that she said and stood for will be forgotten, and we'll probably hear what kind of a hero she was. Basically, the conversation wound down to land, and they still think, the people that think like Zinzi do, they still think that white people came to South Africa and stole the land. And it's not that simple. It's really not that simple. There's, for example, Beth, there's you, Moo, there's you, and there's me as well. Eventually you're going to buy your own property, or you have bought your own property. You didn't steal that.
Yep.
Well, as for what happened in 1652, fuck knows, I wasn't there.
Precisely.
I had absolutely bollocks to do with this.
Yeah, precisely. We're here.
My personal opinion, fuck Jan van Riebeeck and the cow that carried him too. I don't care.
Well, I'm like the first half generation South African. My father came here in 1976.
Okay.
My mom and my sisters, I forget exactly the timeline, how it worked out, but my father started working in Johannesburg in 1976, and for a while my mother was in Cape Town with my sisters, staying with her brother. And my father bought property in Johannesburg in 1978. He bought that with the money that he was earning.
Yeah, and that's legally bought.
Yes, it might be true that my father was profiteering at the time off of the apartheid government. That might be true. I will give you that. However, the accident of my birth in 1979 does not necessarily mean that I have profiteered off of apartheid.
Yeah. See, this is the other argument that I also have with regards to fairness. We do not convict the children of murderers and fraudsters and so on for the crimes that their fathers committed or their mothers
Yes.
committed, because that would be abhorrent. That would be something that's totally disgusting. It would be something that is incomprehensible to any individual with a sound reasoning mind. But yet, when it comes to apartheid, you know, white people seem to be fair game to paying for the sins of their ancestors, and that's just not right. Irrespective, you can't say you do not stand for imprisoning children of, or the descendants of murderers and fraudsters and so on, criminals in other words, and then turn around and say, yeah, but white people, even the young white people, have benefited from apartheid.
Yes. And I mean, sure, we can argue until we're blue in the face that, you know, today, my generation, for example, is set up better than what the same people, the people the same age as me, of a darker skin color, are doing less well than what I am.
But it's also
because of our generation. But then I look at Unati Kwaza. She's the same age as me. She's actually a little bit older than me.
And
she's not blaming apartheid.
No, and she's achieved so much.
Absolutely.
Oh, Nati's a legend.
Yes.
Exactly. I also adore that woman to bits. She says exactly what she thinks. She's a successful businesswoman, and she's a strong individual, something that I think a lot of people should admire. And yet, you know, this is also another thing that I've noticed. Once you've sort of expressed your opinion, and if you're like, for example, a Nazi, you're somehow branded as a traitor. And that to me
I also don't understand that.
Yeah, it's very stupid. So in the beginning, Moo was there in the beginning. My Twitter name was, what was it? Kagiso Masinga. And that was to sort of explore this idea that that I was seeing, and I wanted to understand it. So I pretended to be this black person, and I would engage with other black people as well, you know, with their mindsets and so on, and I would challenge them. And I was very pro-capitalist. I still am a pro-capitalist. And
I think we all are.
Yeah, and and the most vile things were said to me, and I was like, I don't understand why they are so hateful. And then I realized, well, after I spoke to someone at one of my clients' place, which is an Indian, he said, you know, it's because they were indoctrinated from a very young age. Even he, you know, the Indian that I spoke to, even he was a full-blown Marxist during apartheid. He believed that was the only system forward. Thank God he evolved and he grew a pair of brains, and, you know, he sort of realized that, hey, Marxism is actually death in red clothing. So he's totally different today.
Well, today we have the online supermarket for, you know, any red clothing that you might need.
You're talking about that Gucci store.
Yes,
indeed.
We're back on the Gucci store.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's a fascinating concept to me. It's fascinating how someone or a certain political party can have these views on socialist Marxism and then open a capitalist online store.
Oh,
yes.
Didn't you know?
That broke my fucking brain.
No, didn't you know? It's only capitalist if white people do it or if other pro-capitalists do it, but it's communism if Marxists do it.
Actually, I have a new mask now. It has a middle finger on it, and nobody likes it.
Oh, like your avatar.
Exactly like that.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
It's a zombie hand.
I want one.
You should actually market it.
Oh, I'd love to. My boss will have a shit fit though. He
I'm
saw it on
sure.
my face. He saw it on my face, and he said to me, "Please turn that inside out now."
It's like I wore my obey mask to work once to one of the clients. And they just
Yeah.
looked at me and like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, well, you guys are like forcing me to wear this mask, so I'm obeying. And they didn't think I was very funny with that. But after that, I see like 90% of the people that work for them don't wear their masks at their desks anymore. So the message got through, and that's what's important.
Yeah, I
John
think.
Steenhuisen.
What about John Steenhuisen?
He has the Guy Fawkes mask that Roman market.
Yes.
That was some brilliant trolling right there.
It was fantastic. Fantastic. Even my husband was like, because I showed him the picture that was posted on Facebook, and my husband was like, "Who is that again? Is that seriously John Steenhuisen?"
Oh no, brilliant.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
I can't see any of his social media posts because the fragile cactus blocked me.
Steenhuisen.
Yes,
It was Roman that posted it though.
Hey?
Roman posted the picture of him in Parliament wearing it.
I should actually then look at it because it might be one of those days that I was so freaking busy I couldn't.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Hey? I think it was like about 4 weeks ago. I don't know. Like I've lost. Like time is just a social construct now.
Yeah, that should be a saying. That maybe we should make merch on that. Like time is a social construct, and then just put it on a cup or something.
With the pages of those old-fashioned calendars that you used to rip it off.
Yeah.
As the days went by, like have that flying out the window.
Yeah.
And like a clock that's showing like 5 different hands pointing, and like they're all different. No, the hands are loose.
Yes.
Yes, the hands are loose.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, guys, I need to go. My hot water bottle's gone cold.
Okay, man. Thank you very much, and thank you for your contribution.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
I hope you got what you wanted.
Oh,
Dodgy.
Yes, I definitely did. But I am going to make a blooper clip of this. Wink, wink, Moo.
Oh, please make a blooper clip. That'll be hilarious.
Especially the part where I'm so stoned.
I'm so stoned, and then I'll follow that up with the inbreeding part.
You need to change her Twitter handle for 24 hours to the stoned inbred.
Oh yes, and only Eleutheria and I will know about this.
I'm going to do that now.
Awesome. I'll be looking out for that. Otherwise, ladies, thank you very much for this enlightening conversation.
Thank you
so much for having us.
Yes.
I'll show you.
Great.
I'll show you the clip or the edited video before I publish it, and then you guys can still make suggestions and so on until you guys are happy with it.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
You too.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.